I first entered a gym, I never asked a question of why I was the only disabled person in the gym. What made me so different? I realized that there's 71,000 fitness apps on the market, which is crazy, but none catered especially for disabled people.
Hey, Ali.
Hello?
I'm co-founder of the Living Care Company. I love to have chats with people in and around the care world, service providers and product providers within that industry. And Ali, thanks for joining us today. Can you tell me a bit about yourself?
So my name's Ali Jawad. My background is in elite parasport. So I've competed at 4 Paralympic Games, winning silver in Rio in 2016. And in 2021, I co-founded the first ever complete fitness app, especially designed for people with disabilities.
Wow.
194, come on then. Bar pauses on the way up. Does it tip? What do the referees think? Looks at the scoreboard. Oh, 2-1 against.
You've set up Accessercise. Just tell us a bit more about that and how it addresses those unmet needs.
Yeah, during the first lockdown, I reflected on my kind of Paralympic career. And as a disabled person, I started from the very beginning in terms of when I first entered a gym, I never asked a question of why I was the only disabled person in the gym, what made me so different, or was there barriers there that I just didn't know? Because obviously my dream was to get to a Paralympic Games, so was I just more resilient or adaptable?
You don't dream though in the first place. What sowed the seed in your mind to think, I want to get to the Olympics?
So in '96, I watched the Olympics in Atlanta, and I watched a man called Michael Johnson win his historic 200 and 400 meter gold medals.
I watched that live as well, yeah.
And it was just like the most amazing thing I've ever seen. And I thought, actually, I want to do what he's done, being like on top of the podium with the national anthem playing. And yeah, I was 6 years old. It started this desire to get to a Paralympic Games, and luckily I've made it to 4, which is great. I had a great career. But obviously during lockdown, I was obviously training for Tokyo from my living room because of COVID. But I knew that Tokyo was my last Games. I knew that was it for me. And obviously reflecting on my career, I realized that obviously as a disabled person, I've had the ultimate privilege of having the best coaching and facilities and practitioners and that the money can buy, right? I had knowledge that it really couldn't be bought by the disabled community. So I realized that actually, imagine if that knowledge was filtered down to the community, they could be fit and active on their terms in a way that's evidence-based and scientifically backed. Obviously, during lockdown, there's loads of fitness apps out, loads of them. And I did some homework and I realized that there's 71,000 fitness apps on the market, which is crazy, but none catered especially for disabled people.
That is quite remarkable.
And I thought that's insane, like especially when we talk about accessibility in the fitness industry and making it more inclusive. I was like, I cannot believe there isn't a fitness app for disability. So I started writing down a few ideas of what a fitness app could look like if it existed. And then within the hour, I had this idea on paper, but there were obviously 3 things that were very wrong. 1, I'm not an entrepreneur. My background is I'm just an athlete. 2, I'm not a tech wizard, so I can't code. And 3, I'm not a multi-millionaire to make this happen. So if you put the 3 together, you're thinking there's no point in doing this. However, athletes are taught to get through adversity and always find a way. So I pitched it to my co-founder and CEO, Sam, asked him if it was a crazy idea. And he said, yes, it's crazy, but I think you should do it. 3 years later, here we are.
Amazing. And is Sam a friend or someone that you met through networking? Or?
No, Sam is my manager, was my manager for 11 years of my career. So
Yeah.
I trust his judgment of telling me the truth. So he told me the truth that day. It was quite funny.
If someone wants to find the app, it's called Accessercise. If they type that in the search box, that's on Android or Apple, I take it.
Yes, it's available on both platforms.
So as a sort of disabled person, someone that comes onto the app, how does the app work and how does it help them?
Yes, the app works in 3 ways based on 3 main features. So one is the unique exercise library. This library is impairment-specific. So every single video in the library, the demonstrator is a person of your disability. So for example, I'm a double-leg amputee. I'll go in the app, say that I'm a double-leg amputee. All the videos that are presented to me are performed by somebody with a double-leg amputation, which means that I can understand how an exercise is performed, how it's adapted in a safe way. And as a user, you get to pick any sort of exercise you want to do, and that creates a training session for you based on the filters that you apply. And that can be based on location, equipment, intensity, stuff like that, or muscle group, which means that actually the user is in full control at any time of their exercise journey, which has never been done. 2, we've got a social hub. It's more like a community where users can share their workouts with other like-minded disabled people, so they can share, comment. It's like a support network. And 3, we've got the explore section, which is my favorite, allows the user to rate any gym or sporting facility in the country in terms of accessibility. Now, we know that's never been done in terms of sporting and fitness venues. It allows the user to understand where is the most accessible places for them, rated by disabled people, but also allows the gyms and the fitness centers to understand whether or not they're actually as accessible as they say they are.
Basically get specialist feedback that they can then react to.
Exactly. It's data that nobody's ever really collected in that way. And we're trying to hopefully use it to change policy. But we're going to try and make the Explore feature a little bit more specific. So, for example, a gym could be accessible for a double-leg amputee, but not for somebody with a visual impairment. So we're going to try and make it as impairment-specific as possible in the future.
Yeah. What are some of the basic things that gyms need to have in place for accessibility? Just in layman's terms, what are the key things, levels? And
Yes, I think for me, so it's not enough having just a ramp or getting into the building. Obviously, with gyms, you're talking about the equipment itself. So is there enough space between the equipment for a wheelchair to go through safely? Is the machinery like swing away machinery where you can swing away the seat and the chair can be positioned in a safe place? Also, do staff have any sort of knowledge on how to advise disabled people? There's a lot of things that gyms and sporting facilities can do. I mean, it's actually an easy fix if they talk and engage with the community and actually understand it. And they seem to shy away from that because a lot of them are scared, aren't they? I think for us, the most important thing is we just need to collect as much data as possible to understand how accessible is the industry itself. And then when we understand that number, we can start working with the facilities to hopefully improve the standard. And we're not talking about crazy standards here. We're just talking about fundamental standards that will encourage more disabled people to get out of the house and actually go to the gym, to engage with the community and be part of it. A lot of disabled people struggle to go to gyms because of loads of variables, and one is actually the lack of facility, lack of knowledge. They're intimidated by the environment. They don't really feel seen or heard. And I think hopefully the app reduces that barrier for them to feel like they can exercise as part of a community.
are you going to offer sort of training sessions to gyms and things like that?
Yeah, so funny you said that. Last week with our partners, Future Fit are the biggest PT training provider in the country. We launched the first ever impairment-specific CPD course for personal trainers, focusing on visual impairments. And we're launching more specific disabilities this year. So we are now going into that education market and hopefully translating them courses to a lot of languages. So globally, PTs can access it. I think it's important that having a disability course is too generic. You have to be able to understand the impairment itself. And that's why we created them. So it's the first one in the industry to ever do it.
Yep. Single bit of advice would you give to someone who maybe had disability that felt that they just couldn't get themselves going with exercise and felt discouraged? How would you help them get over that barrier? What should they focus on? to get started?
I think it's important that we start slow and gradually build up. We can't go into something 100 miles an hour. So for me, it's filling the water to go for a putt every day. That's exercise. And then gradually build yourself up in terms of maybe do body weight stuff. And then eventually, over time, you might be able to go to a gym and actually experience what a training session looks like. But I think it's very important that it's very gradual, because I know how intimidating it is to go to a gym.
Amazing. Obviously, we talked a lot about the future of exercise, and I think there's so many sort of helpful and useful things that will come out of it. Product marketplace and service marketplace and training marketplace. But what's the most exciting thing coming down the pipe next for exercise?
I think for us, it's the new features coming eventually. I think for me, it's expanding the impairment offering that we have. So in the app at the moment, we've got 7 different disabilities. We're trying to grow to maybe 198. When we get to that sort of level, then we know we've gotten the majority of impairments in there. For us, we want to make it the most accessible fitness app there's ever been. It's quite ambitious, but I think we can get there with patience and time. And yes, what disabled community to come on the journey with us.
And what's next personally for you? I suspect you're working all the hours to push this exciting project ahead, are you? Is that how things look for you at the moment?
Yeah, so from a personal point of view, there obviously want to keep scaling the app into other countries as well. Personally, I'm also doing a PhD as well, so I need to try and graduate in the next couple of years. And I'm also doing the London Classics event. So I've done the London Marathon. I'm doing Swim Serpentine in September. Then I'm doing Ride London next year, which is 100 miles. And that will be a Guinness World Record because I'll be the first double leg amputee to ever do all 3. So on a personal level, I'm still keeping myself quite active as well. So I'm very busy.
And what's your PhD, Annie?
So nothing to do with exercise. I guess it's to do with the governance of sport. So my PhD is in anti-doping and integrity issues in parasport. Yeah, so quite geeky.
So potentially there's doping in all areas of sport, but how does that look in Paralympics? People are just as liable to dope, are they?
Yeah, like the Paralympic Games has grown significantly in the last 20 years, right? So the reward is the huge reward if you win stuff. When it comes to rewards, a lot of people sometimes will take shortcuts to achieve the reward. So yeah, the Paralympic Games isn't susceptible to no doping. In fact, in my sport, powerlifting, it's one of the high-risk sports. And I think as an athlete competing in it, it was very difficult to compete with high-risk nations, I'd call them. I guess that the research when it comes to doping in parasport is actually quite rare. There's hardly anything out there. So I wanted to contribute to the topic as someone that's experiencing competing at the top level. So hopefully my PhD leads to other people going into the area and making change.
It's been amazing talking to you, Ali. You've got a hell of a lot on your plate. I've got to say, PhD, maybe I have to just take a little back step to the app, maybe.
Yeah, the app is obviously the number one focus, but I'm very good at juggling my time.
Definitely, obviously. Cool, man. Brilliant to speak to you. Hope to speak to you again. And thanks for your time. And just for anyone wanting to access the app, it's accessercise.com or that same word on any of the app stores.
Thank you.
Brilliant, Ali. All right. Take care.